What is up, everybody? We are back for another episode of Preacher's Corner, and some of you might be sitting there right now like, wait a second. Is it Friday? No, it is not Friday. It is Monday. It is Veterans Day. So I just want to, before we start, I want to say thank you to all my fellow veterans, whether you're in the military still or whether you're out. Thank you for what you have done for this country. Thank you for what you do for us each and every day. It's an amazing thing. It's a sacrifice that not many people make, but the ones that have made it, thank you. Thank you. And so, today we have an amazing episode. It's a special episode. I can say it's an emotional episode. Just thinking about it is it's an emotional episode, and so I am so excited for this. And so here we go. Get ready. Grab a box of tissues. Grab some toilet paper. I got mine right here. I got mine. Get ready because here we go in 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
He'll stand up when he hears the anthem, and that won't ever change.
What is up, everybody? We are back for another episode of Preacher's Corner. Scorpio, I do not know where he is. He should be coming. When he pops in, we'll think about letting him in the room. Maybe I'll let him sit and wait a little bit, wait it out, wonder what's going on. But today we have Natalee King. She's a veteran of the United States Air Force. Not everybody can be cool and join the Army, but whatever. We won't hold that against her. She's a widow, a wife, a mom, and then why she's on here is because she is a recovering addict, and right now she's working in recovery work. And so I saw her post on Instagram and was like, yo, I have to get this lady on. Her story is extremely powerful when I watched it, and so I was like, I gotta have her on. So Natalee, welcome to Preacher's Corner.
Hi,
We're glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So if you want, real quick, before we jump in, just let everybody know, like I let them know you're Natalee, but if you want to let them know who you are, what you do, and just a little bit about yourself. And then I'm going to ask you one question that everybody gets asked, and it's like the best question ever. But go ahead and let everybody know who you are.
I'm Natalee. I am from Florida. I live in Florida, Air Force veteran, a Gold Star widow. Today I do anti-drug. I work for my anti-drug coalition in our county. And like you said, I'm doing outreach work. So it's been really, really exciting for me.
That's awesome. How's Florida? Like, what, are you close to where the hurricanes were?
Oh, yeah. So the hurricane hit us like straight on. I'm like in central Florida, but okay. we did good. We fared well.
That's awesome.
We, helped clean up the community and stuff like that afterwards. Yeah. But as far as my house, we did excellent here. So
that's awesome.
Very blessed.
That's awesome. Good. Yeah. That is always a good thing.
Always, yes.
So the one thing we ask everybody before we start is what are 3 interesting facts about yourself?
Oh my gosh, this is hard. Okay. First one, I have one that hardly nobody knows. I sucked my thumb until I was a junior in high school.
Get out of here.
So I swear, I did. I sure did. And I slept with a baby blanket the whole time.
Now, did you like try to hide it? Like you're in like math class?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. So it was only whenever I was going to sleep. It was whenever I was
so it wasn't like random times during the day.
No, not like random times.
That would have been more interesting.
No, but I mean, nobody knew about it because I did it.
Like during the test, you're just like.
Yeah. No, I didn't. That would have been horrible. Let's see what else. I was on varsity golf team in high school. So I
Okay.
lettered in golf my freshman year in high school, and I
I
played all
didn't know
four
they letter
years.
in golf.
You sure can. So I lettered in golf and cheerleading. So that was
Interesting.
fun.
Those are
Uh,
two, like, you wouldn't expect those to be like the two that match up.
I know our golf coach, like my friend and I were both cheerleaders, and we joined the golf team, and we would cheer and stuff whenever we made a hole, and he'd be like, "You guys can't do that. You just can't." He's like, "It's very quiet out here."
See, that's what I'm
Um,
saying. Those are two that you wouldn't think like
I
match
know.
up. Like
Oh my
one's
goodness.
loud and proud, and one's like,
It's too funny. And then another random fact. Let's see. Last one. I okay. My first car was a 5-speed Mustang, and my
okay,
mom taught me how to drive it. And the man that I'm with now, we've been together 7 years now. I had to teach him how to drive a stick at like 26 years old, and I
hey,
learned at
hey,
like 15.
hey, I don't even know how to drive a stick. Okay.
You guys are so funny. That's what the guy, Justin, my husband now. He's like, oh my gosh. He's like, don't tell anybody that. He's like, I know I should have known. I'm like,
And
come
now,
on, you
and
were in
now
the
all of
army.
America
I was like, you
will
were in
hear
the
this.
army and everything, and you don't know how to drive a stick. Come on now.
Hey,
So
like I
funny.
said, I'm 37, and I'm that is one skill I have not. I tried it one time when I was in high school. My youth group leader, she had a stick, and she was like, "You want to try?" And I thought I was gonna like ruin her transmission because it was like.
It does feel like that, but if you can't find it, grind it. That's what you do. Can't find it, grind it. Grind the gears.
See, usually grinding is a bad thing.
It is, but if you can't find it, then you just grind it. But it is a bad thing. But it
uh,
happens. It happens on a stick. It's normal.
yeah, I'd rather the car just do it for me. That's
Yeah, I know. It's so
I
much
already got a
easier.
lot going on in my head. That's way too much to think about. Like, okay, I need to shift it now. Now I need to shift it again. But it probably happens naturally now for you.
It does.
Like you probably don't even
You can
think
hear
about it.
it, and you can like once you get the hang of it, you can hear it and you can feel it when it needs to be shifted. So it's very natural now.
That's
But
pretty
yeah.
cool. Um,
So.
so I noticed you went like this and you have tattoos. How many tattoos do you have?
Oh my gosh, I have so many tattoos. I have a lot. And you know what? Most of them I regret. I wish I didn't have any, to be honest, because it's rare nowadays. It's
Yeah.
rare to not have tattoos nowadays. But I have a lot of tattoos. Most of them are hidden.
So interesting fact about myself. I am getting 2 new tattoos, and it's going to be on each of my like hands like that. And the right hand is gonna say 41324 for the when I got off of drugs, and then the other hand is gonna say FREED. So the day I got
Oh, I
freed
love
was
that.
41324, and it'll
I
always be
love
on my
that.
hands. And why I'm doing it on my hands, because my hands were what I used to hold the crack pipe. So like
Yeah,
now I use my hands for recovery and recovery work instead of
I love that.
leading to destruction. So yeah.
I love that. See, meaningful tattoos. I have a few meaningful tattoos that I don't regret, but a lot of the tattoos that I got in my addiction, I regret most of them.
Yeah. No, yeah,
So,
I like I'm kind of glad I didn't get any when I was in my addiction, because they would have been like,
yeah,
I would have
yeah,
felt the same way. Like, why
yeah,
did you get that?
yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
so now we're gonna transition over to the reason why you're here, uh,
hmm
your story. So every story starts somewhere, and so how can you tell us what your childhood was like growing up
Sure.
prior to you joining the military?
So I was a military brat. I had an older sister and a younger brother, and we grew up I was born in Puerto Rico. We lived there
Okay.
for 5 years, moved to Hawaii, lived there for 3 years, and then Texas is where I finished out my high school years. And I had a great childhood. I mean, it was the 90s. So, what's brought to light nowadays with addiction and alcohol and things like that, it's there's a lot of research on it today. Back then, there wasn't so much. We grew up, my parents were both in the military, and in the military, there's a lot of drinking. I mean, it's just normal
Absolutely.
in that sense. It's so normalized. And so my parents were big drinkers, and I did grow up in the bars a lot growing up. My brother and he's 2 years younger than me, so him and I have been through a lot of stuff together. My childhood was really good. I was an active child in sports, and I did average in school. But when I graduated high school, the summer before I was supposed to start college, my older sister, Nikki, she died from a drug overdose. She was addicted to painkillers, Vicodin and Xanax, Somas, things like that. And this was in 2007, 2008, when the pill mills were really rampant in Houston and in Florida as well. People would drive from all over, states all over, and come to these pill mills in Houston that I know of for sure. And also, I heard Florida had them. And they would get pills by the hundreds from these doctors. And so, what my sister would do is she would go to multiple of these doctors and get, hundreds of thousands of pills. And she would sell some of them, but she was also taking them, her and her fiance at the time. So my sister, the night that she died, it was August 5th. And
how old were you at this time?
I was 18 years old, and my younger brother, was 16, and my sister, she was 26. So she was 7 years older than me. And I was supposed to stay the night with her that night. It was a hurricane. I ended up sleeping at a friend's house, but my brother, he stayed the night with her that night. It was around 2 a.m. when he woke up, and this story's from my brother. So he woke up and he found my sister. He was sleeping on the couch, and he looked down in the living room floor, and my sister was on her knees with her face down in the carpet. And she had a plate of food, a sandwich on her plate. And my brother said he tried to wake her up, and he lifted her up, and he saw that she had food in her mouth still. So he dug the food out, and she still wasn't breathing. And so he started to perform CPR, and he woke up her fiance.
At 16.
At 16 years old. So he was a lifeguard at Slitterbond in Galveston at the time, so he was certified in CPR. He knew what he was doing, and my sister's fiance had the idea to put her in a bathtub. I think that's kind of normal within addicts. They think if you are overdosing, a lot of times I hear that people will put you in a cold bathtub to try to wake you up.
Yeah.
Anyways, they tried that, and it didn't work. So my brother, he told me he was just, in his words, cranking on her. And he said he felt some of her ribs break, and he was doing sternum rubs, and he said she just wasn't moving at all. And the ambulance arrived, and they called the time of death. I arrived that morning after I got a phone call from my parents screaming to come to my sister's house. And this isn't the first time she overdosed. So in my mind, what I asked my parents was, what hospital is she at? And they said, no, she's at her house. Come to her house right away. So I went to her house, and my brother, he looked shell-shocked. He was sitting on the couch with his face in a pillow, not talking or moving or anything, but they carried her down in the body bag. They treated it like a crime scene. I'll never forget, like, the cops wouldn't let me upstairs to see her body. And I remember them carrying her down. It felt like, I don't know, it was probably an hour and a half when the coroner arrived, and they carried her down in this blue and black body bag. It was all blue, and it was lined in black. And they set her on the gurney, and they unzipped her head so my mom and dad could see her. And I will never, ever, ever forget the screams that I heard from my parents. And they were like kissing her face all over. And God, they were just screaming, no, no, Nikki, Nikki. And the cop told me, he said, you're going to have to be really strong for your parents because they're really going to need you these next few years. And, the next 2 years of my life, I was supposed to go to college and I failed out of college, and I shouldn't have started it in the first place at that time, but I did. Anyways, my parents were like, you got to do something with your life. We know you're very sad and distraught over losing your sister, but it's been 2 years. You have to do something. And they pushed me into the Air Force, since all my family was in the Air Force. Well, my sister and my mom were in the Air Force. My dad was Coast Guard. And that's when I moved to Japan. And I met a fellow airman there. His name was John King. And we fell madly in love. It was a whirlwind romance. I have never felt anything like that in my life. And we knew it was special. Both of us knew that. And we got married in Japan. And we ended up moving to Maryland at Joint Base Andrews, our presidential base. And that's where I gave birth to our son, who is John King III. And, 8 months after my son was born, in 2013, my husband was killed in the military, in a military accident. And at this time in my life, it felt like it was constantly, I was just getting blows thrown at me constantly. It felt like, is this how life is supposed to be? Is someone gonna die every 4 years that I love? This isn't fair. And
Because it was probably right, like, not that you fully get over someone passing, but like you were probably right at that moment of like, okay, I'm beginning to understand like how life is without my sister, and like you said, healing, and then here comes another one.
Right. And not only did I just lose him, but I became a single mom, a first-time mom. I was 23 years old. I was so young, and gosh, it was absolutely horrific. His death really took a toll on me in a different way than my sister's did. His death totally broke me, and I really did. Part of me died that day with him, and I'll never be the same person I was. Sorry. He was so the way that he was killed was he was in a military accident. He worked on the flight line. He was a port dog, and sometimes he had to work with Air Force One and Air Force One hangar, things like that. And another airman had asked him to move a vehicle around, and it was an ambi-lift vehicle that was made for Air Force One. And so there's not a lot of these in our military. There's only 2 actually that are made for Air Force One, and so not a lot of men and women are trained on this vehicle. And whenever you drive a GOV, you have to have a spotter. And so my husband was the spotter, and he got crushed against a wall from the sternum down. And they worked on him for 47 minutes before he passed. And that day that they came to my door, I'll never forget. It was absolutely the worst day of my life, and it still is. I will never forget the next day after my husband died. I was in a hotel room on base at Andrews, and I had 2 military doctors come to my bedside, and they prescribed me Xanax to help me cope and get through his funeral, get through, that type of stuff. But as time went on, I quickly became an addict to Xanax. And from the next 6 years, my life was complete chaos. I thought I was going to die many times. I wanted to die. I didn't want to live. And it was so hard for me to to admit that even to this day since I had a baby. But I had a lot of support from my mom and dad. And I knew that if I didn't make it out of my addiction, I knew he would be very well taken care of. But it would still be sad all the way around because I didn't want him to lose both his mom and dad. I was in and out of institutions and jails and rehab and the hospital. I had so many overdoses. I have a lot of pictures and videos on my social media. I'm sure you've seen them of that time in my life. In
one
2017,
one thing that hit me, like you talking about the photos and everything, and you have a lot of reels talking about it, and the one that I saw that I was like, man, I need to get her on here was it, and I wrote it down: depressed, hopeless, and lost, like, and then
yeah,
addicted. And I was like, I totally, and I think a lot of addicts can resonate with this. And I know we have an episode coming up next week where we were talking about, and we talked a little bit about it with, um, I'm sure you know the Instagram every 11 minutes.
yes,
We had him on. He
hmm
was our last week episode. And so we even talked about the stigma of addiction and things like that. And like, I think a lot of people think that us addicts and us recovering addicts, we get into it like, oh, party, let's have a good old time. But
yeah,
like, I know in my case, I was going through a divorce, and
hmm
I felt broken. I felt just like you had on here, depressed, hopeless, lost, and you're trying to find like something to like cover that over, and you try
yes.
all these different things, and I can't say exactly how you felt when you had them give you that Xanax, but
But
like the
it gave me so
feeling
much
of
relief
peace.
of peace, and it was only for a short amount of time,
So you
but it
need
was
more.
worth it at that time. Yeah, you needed more, and my tolerance started getting higher, which means I had to have more to get the same effect, which was a living nightmare. I mean, you're always chasing that first feeling that it gave you of relief from that pain, but it's never there again. It's
No,
never there again. And you know, just it's addiction is people think it's, oh, people just want to, yeah, like you said, want to party and get high, but it's a lot of people that are masking trauma and pain. That's what addiction is. And addiction doesn't discriminate
mm-mm.
on a homeless person or someone that lives in a mansion. Everyone goes through pain differently, and a lot of people mask it with addiction than we even know, than we even
Absolutely.
realize.
And
um,
it's like, it's heartbreaking. Like that's one of the main reasons, like, why I do what I do now. Like, because since I know, like, since I know how I felt, and then I'm like, I don't, now I know like how most addicts feel. It's probably like, I'd say like 90%. The ones that do it because, oh, I want to party, are like a few. A
hmm
majority of them are because they're trying to mask over this pain. And so like, it's just, it's heartbreaking to know, like, you feel your only option. And I wrote down, just because one of your videos, it said, you stole part of my life.
hmm
And like, and you were talking about it holding your hand through different things.
hmm
And like, I wrote down, it starts out as a friend. Like,
yeah,
it's there to help you,
I know. And then it starts choking you to the point you can't breathe.
and it won't
It's
let
going to
go.
kill you.
It
It'll
won't let
kill
you
you.
go. And sometimes people think the only way out is to end it. Like,
Yeah,
it's either I'm going to take myself out, or the struggle is going to take me out. Or you get wrapped up in some crazy situation, and that's the reason why. And so I think it's heartbreaking that there's so many people who, because of trauma, are
yeah,
trying to mask this over, and then they get stuck in it, and now everything that they had, like
I
the
know.
little that they had, is now being ripped away.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's really a shame that we need to, in order to treat addiction, we have to know what the underlying cause is,
Absolutely.
and that's what needs to be treated. Um, it's just a shame, and especially if you're more prone to addiction through your family or anything like that, you should really be educated on what addiction is, what it can do to you, because nowadays, even nowadays, like one pill can kill. You can't even experiment the way that we used
Mm-mm.
to. You can't. It'll kill you nowadays. So it's good to educate. Um, but my addiction, it did steal part of my life. And you're right, it did. At first, it was just holding my hand, and walking me through the pain that I felt. But
Because
towards
it's
the
that
end,
peace.
yeah, it's that peace. And I slept to escape the pain. I did drugs to escape the pain. I didn't sleep to rest, I slept to stop that pain. And Xanax would help me sleep because my mind would race. And then I remember I would wake up on some days in my addiction, with that moment of clarity and sobriety. And I remember I would just stare at the wall like, I hate my life. I'm just so sad. Why did I have to wake up? Why did I wake up? I would think that all the time. Um, it wasn't until so I met in 2016. So this part of my story, it's a little hard, and a lot of people get judgy about it. But
No
you know,
judgment
I,
here on Preacher's Corner.
I don't really care if people judge me about it. This is the way it happened, and it saved my life. But I met a guy online. His name was Justin White, and he was friends with my late husband. They went to high school together.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
they were acquaintances. Yeah. So he knew my husband. He knew me. He knew my story. He knew what had happened. And he reached out to me one day and asked if he could take me to dinner. And at this dinner that we went to, I was passed out the whole time high. And we had to leave early, and he had to bring me back to my parents' house. And the next morning I woke up, and he had came over. He was over at my house talking to my parents, and he asked my parents if he could help intervene to help get me sober,
Mm.
because he had just gotten out of the army at this time, and he hadn't found a civilian job yet. um, he had he didn't have to work at the time, so he had the time to stay with me, and he did. He stayed with me, and he helped me with my son, taking him to school, making him breakfast. He would help me, and he started tapering me off my Xanax. I had
He
a
was
whole
your
bag.
angel.
Yeah, I don't know why he did it still this day. I don't, because most people that I met, they were like, this girl's a mess. Like, she's way too far gone, and they would, not hang around. But for some reason, I don't know why, he said that, Justin said that he could see that I had a good heart, and he felt
I
like
was gonna say he probably coming from a guy, he probably saw something in you,
he
and he's
did.
he's like she needs help.
And that's what he did. It took me 2 years to taper off my Xanax. I gave him a bag. I had $3,500 worth of Xanax in it. And I know it was a big old bag of Xanax bars. And I gave them to him, and he's tapered me off of them in 2 years.
That's awesome.
And it was a really hard taper. I have video of that too that I share online of my taper off Xanax, which was extremely hard. And and that was in 2016. I met him, and we started doing this. So in 2017 is when my dad was diagnosed with ALS.
Mm.
So my dad was given 5 years to live, but that's uncertain. And we
Yeah.
didn't really know what my dad had. We didn't know if he had ALS or if it was something else. We just weren't sure. So
Which is now another in
yeah,
your story now
and
another thing that's like,
yes.
hey,
So
I'm
I'm
back.
just now getting into recovery, and I get this diagnosis from my dad, but I don't really take it to heart because I didn't think that that was his diagnosis. I didn't
Yeah.
think that that's what was wrong with him, to be honest. I really didn't. And it wasn't until 3 years later that I was in recovery still at this time. I had a baby in 2018, and with Justin, the guy I'm with now, and we had a baby, and things were going so good. I was in recovery, and I didn't share. I didn't start sharing my story at this time yet. It wasn't until 2020 when my dad shot himself in the head, and he survived it. So he
Wow.
lost his, yeah. He lost his right eye. So he shot up here. I don't know how it missed his brain, but it did. But he lost his right eye. And then I moved him into my house to take care of him because he was like paralyzed. He could not walk. He couldn't eat. He had a feeding tube. So I had to administer medications to him through his feeding tube, food through his feeding tube. I had to help shave him and, bathe him, bathroom, anything to do with it for a person, you had to do it for my dad. And Justin and my mom helped me a lot do that with him. I wasn't just by myself. So we had 3 people taking shifts around the clock to take care of my dad. And he ended up dying in 2021 from ALS. And later that year, he died in February of 2021. And I started sharing my story in 2021, kind of at the end of it. And I didn't mean to, it was an accident. It was. I didn't
It's like
think,
you get it, then you're, oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I didn't think the stuff that happened in my life, I know that everybody goes through trauma.
Yeah.
Everybody goes through trauma. We all go through trials and tribulations. We all do. So I didn't think that my story would have such an impact on people. I didn't realize that it was that impactful until I started sharing it. I didn't realize that a lot of people didn't go through things like this until I started sharing it. And it blew up on TikTok. I could have video. I would post one video and it would go viral. It was so easy for me to get followers on TikTok because of my story. And it just grew and grew. And then I made a Facebook, which I got a bunch of followers there. So then my platform started growing and I started getting a lot of opportunities, and I do outreach work today for drug and alcohol addiction. And I work for the Anti-Drug Coalition today in our county, helping hands-on, the youth in our county to stay away from drugs. I do online work too. I do volunteer work today. I stay busy in my recovery. I stay super busy to keep my mind active.
Absolutely.
But also sharing my story has been so healing for me. I didn't realize it would be so healing to say these things out loud and have that confirmation that you're feeling like that, to validate my feelings. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you did go through that shit and it sucked and it is shitty, but look at you now and you made it this far. It felt good to have people tell me that, because you can say it to yourself or you can hear it from a friend, but you don't really take it to heart until you start hearing it from people that don't know you.
Absolutely. And I think everything that we go through, I always say one of the people that I trust least are people that don't go through anything.
Yeah.
Because especially in a situation I am not going to trust you with my life if you have not gone through anything.
No way.
Because you don't have any experience, you don't have anything to draw from. And so I think the people that have gone through the most are the people that can endure the most. And
Absolutely.
because each time you come out of something, you've grown from that. And some people, they shut down, but it's the people that are able to come out of it and that have that grit, and then we're even able to just like what we're doing right now, because not everybody has the grit to get out of a situation.
Right.
But the ones who have the grit are the ones who go in and help the ones who don't have the grit to come out.
Exactly. And those people that need that advice, they want to hear from people with experience,
Absolutely.
Not someone with a degree.
Absolutely.
They want to hear.
I used to, like I was telling you before we started, I was a student pastor, but even before that, I was working with the homeless and addicts before I even became a an addict and a pastor. And so I used to, like, now where I stand right now on the other side of addiction, like the things I used to say when I wasn't
I
an
know.
addict, like I'm like I would have smacked myself in the mouth. Like,
Yep.
shut up, you don't know what you're talking about.
I know.
Like, but it's the old saying, like, if I have one leg, I'm not gonna ask someone with two the quickest way to get somewhere. I'm gonna
Right.
ask someone who has one leg because they probably know the quickest way to get there.
Exactly. I would want to ask advice from someone that's experienced, that's been through it.
Absolutely,
I don't want to hear someone that read a book about it, you know?
absolutely. And that's
100%.
like even in, because right now I'm going through the training to get certified as a peer, and in the training it says that the one thing that we have in our pockets as peers that people in clinical and things like that don't have
Yep.
are those shared experiences.
Absolutely.
Because we can sit down with somebody, and when they're just like with me right now, living at a house with 13 other veterans, like I'll be sitting with somebody and they'll be like, oh man, you don't know what it's like to live at a house with 12 other people. Actually, I
Actually.
just came from a house with 13 other people, so I
Yep.
do know what it's like.
Yep. Exactly. That's the best way to do it, is through your own experience.
Absolutely.
I did a this past weekend I did a teen town hall, it was called, for drug addiction. That's what most of the teenagers said. They're all in high school. They said, we want to hear from people that have experience with addiction. We don't want to hear from doctors or nurses that have no experience and read a book. They're like, we want people that have been through it and have gone out of it. That's what we
Absolutely.
want to hear from.
Absolutely. If you've haven't experienced anything, how do you know how to get through it? Like,
Exactly.
and all you're doing is sharing other people's stories. Like,
Exactly.
and so uh, I resonate with your story a lot. Just because my mom and dad, they met in Korea,
Mm.
and my mom had gotten out of, or my dad had gotten out of the military, and went to found out that my mom was having getting stationed at Fort Gordon,
Okay.
and so he moved to Augusta and he became a cop. And I was born in Fort Gordon when my mom came over, but when I was a year old, he got shot by
Oh my
another
gosh.
officer. And so, like, just hearing your story and how, like, you lost your husband, I've never, like, I've thought about, like, how did my mom feel, like, when that happened, having a 1 year old,
Mm-hmm.
being in the military, and being so far, because her parents were, and one was in Roanoke, Virginia, and one was in Geneva, New York. And so having
She had
them
no one.
so far away, like, to not have that support, I've wondered a little bit, but I could never understand the emotion, because I that's no one wants to go to their mom and be like, somehow, how did it feel when my
Right.
dad passed away.
I know.
But seeing the emotion that you had almost gives me an insight to how my mom felt at that time.
It's absolutely, I when they told me that he died, I literally started throwing up. Like, I was dry heaving. I got instantly nauseous. I physically got sick. It takes a toll on your body, and it on your mind and everything. Those first few, that whole year, the first year or two is all blur to me. I mean, I didn't even, and I hate saying this, but the first thing I thought of when they said he died was my son.
Hmm.
And I was like, how am I going to raise him on my own? How am I going to keep his father's memory alive? How am I going to do this in general? And I felt guilty for not, wanting to be here, because, I had him to raise and he was innocent in all of this. But, God, he works in mysterious ways,
That
because
he does.
it's mind blowing to me. My mom, I was in Maryland and my mom was in Texas at the time, and she was actually visiting me that day that he
Mm.
died. And she was due to leave on a plane the next day on Monday, and he died on a Sunday. And like, God knew I couldn't be alone. Like, he knew that. I don't know why. He just knew I couldn't be strong enough to have heard that he died on my own. So I'm grateful that my mom was there. I got a DUI in my addiction too. Another time, God, it's on my Instagram, but I got a DUI with a car wreck and I crashed head on into another vehicle on Xanax. Nobody was hurt, thank God. But I went to jail that day. And recently, just a few months ago, the lady that I hit head on saw one of my videos on Facebook, and she reached out to me and wrote me a message about how she prayed for me that day and the days after. How she made a Facebook post praying for me, and she sent it to me. This was in 2016.
Wow.
She sent it to me this year of her Facebook post that she made the day that I hit her, and how she saw that I was a broken young girl and that I needed God in my life. In this like amazing ways that God works in our lives that I would have never heard or known of if I gave up. I would have given up in my addiction. I would have never known God. I would have never known him.
Absolutely.
Because I pushed him away in my addiction. I was mad at him. I was so mad, and I blamed him. Addiction helped me blame God, and it was easy to blame him. But when I let him in my heart and I started healing, it gave me a new perspective.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how it secludes you so much where like, and I've said this a couple times, like I felt like, okay, it's the only thing I have, and I know it's taking everything away from me, but now I have nothing else but it, so I have to keep using it, like,
right?
Because now I have so much pain from all the loss and all the brokenness. Like, if I don't take it, now I have to do all this by myself, sober,
And
I don't want to think about it sober.
Exactly. And not only do you have to do it all by yourself without him, but if you were to die and you don't have God in your heart, how would I ever have meet the people that I love again that have died? If I didn't have God, I have to believe. I have to believe.
It's that hope.
So I can see the people that I lost again. I can't believe that nothing happens after this. I just can't.
Absolutely. So I usually don't do this because we try to keep it for everybody. But one hold on, I'll be right back.
Okay. Okay,
I'm back. So yesterday, because you don't get the name preacher for no reason on the street. So everybody on the street knew that I had been a pastor, and then I ended up getting, like, back in January I OD'd, and like I was going and doing youth group. I remember my last youth group, all I could think of was, I can't wait to get out of here so I can go use. And it was like the worst message I've ever done. It was terrible. And so I made the decision. I said, like, I need to get help. So I reached out to my executive pastor. I was like, yo, I need some time off. They didn't know at that time that I was in addiction. And I was like, I just need a couple weeks. Like, the divorce has been harder on me than I thought it was. So they told me to go to a 10-day retreat. So I go to the retreat and everything. And when I was there, I was like, you're living a double life and you need to stop. And so instead of stopping the bad thing, I kept going with the bad thing because I was so just latched on. And so I ended up. It's the easy choice. It's the easy choice. Exactly. Because if I would have stopped using, then I would have had to admit what I was doing so I could then get clean. But I wasn't going to admit to anybody. Even while I was sitting, living homeless, and I was texting people like, hey, I need money for gas. And eventually people started realizing, bro, you don't need money for gas every day.
Right.
And I'm even having to deal with that because someone I know who went to church with me, she was like, it breaks my heart to know that you used that money to get high. And I'm like, it breaks my heart that I use that money to get high. I know.
I
Like,
know.
but I stepped down because of it. And when I stepped down, it's almost like being a student pastor was the one thing that kept me from like just plummeting.
Over the edge,
and
right?
and because I had to have a little clarity still to do what I was doing. But once I stepped away, now I had nothing holding me back. And so I
Right.
took a huge plunge. So I've been thinking lately about all the things that I've lost. And I like I think about being student pastor, and then I see on, because I still have their Instagram, and I see that they got a new student pastor, and it makes me think more about everything that I lost, and my kids don't talk to me, and my parents don't talk to me, and so all the time I'm thinking of all these things that I've lost, while at the same time I have all this stuff that I've been gaining, and I fail to acknowledge that stuff. And so yesterday I was reading through the Bible. I was doing my morning read, and I came across Joel, and it's Joel 25, 25 through 26, and it says, "I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten, the hopper, the destroyer, and the cutter, my great army which I sent among you. You shall eat in plenty and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Lord your God, who has dwelt wondrously with you." And when I read that, like a peace came across me, like he was telling me right there, like, stop worrying
Yeah.
about all the stuff you lost. You lost it, yes, but you're gaining back so much more. And that even goes like, um you said in one of the videos, like I've watched a lot of them.
Good. No, that's good.
You have taken so much from me, but you won't take what I've gained over the last 5 years. And so
Hmm.
I thought, like, you've taken so much from me, but you're not going to take what I've gained back since recovery. I started recovery, and
Absolutely.
like that passage just speaks even more to that. Like,
Absolutely.
on the other side, and I think a lot of people when they start off in recovery, they think like, because you hear all these people like, I have 16 years, I have 17 years, I have 35 years, and to someone
Yeah.
who has one day, you're like, oh my goodness, I have to do this for 35 years.
I know.
I can't do this. But one reason why like my co-host, who I don't know where he is, you're missing an amazing show,
I
Scorpio.
know.
But uh, one reason why we do this is, and bring on guests, is so that people can see, like, and hear, oh, my story isn't far off from this. So if they did it and it's possible for them to go that long, I can go that long too.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why this community of, like, this recovery community, the sobriety community, is so important, because like the people who have done it for 16 years can come alongside the people who've done it for one day. And,
Mhm.
and one thing I heard, I forget where I heard it, like, the only way you have more clean time than me is if you woke up earlier. Like,
Mm.
because it's an everyday thing.
Yep.
Because even at 35, I've seen people with 35 years, one day something happens and they're like, oh, like, I've been drinking 35 years. I'll have one drink. And then
Yeah.
that starts a huge downward cycle. And so,
Absolutely.
um, I just, you saying, like, if you would have given up, um, you would have missed so much. And I think somebody needed to hear that. Like, and to hear
Yeah.
that just because, like, you're in it doesn't mean that's the end. And you may have lost a lot, but there's so much more you can gain on the other side of it.
Absolutely. There's so much more you can gain. The future is bright. It really is. And it's bright for everybody that can find recovery. You know, just, I forgot what I was going to say. I'm sorry. I had something I was going to say, but it'll come back to me. Hopefully. Hopefully.
But so the one thing I've been thinking about as you've been going and talking about everything is, like, you got into addiction because of
The
um,
trauma.
that peace that it gave
Yes.
you from the trauma.
Now
And
I was also susceptible to addiction because my sister was an addict. My mom and
yep,
dad were both drinkers, and I didn't know addiction was, in your genes. It really
yeah,
is. And so I didn't even know I was susceptible to it. So when that Xanax was prescribed to me, and I mean, I fell headfirst into it, and there was no, I mean, I had no way out. There was multiple times in my addiction. One time after my sister died, I tried a suicide attempt, and then once in my addiction, I tried a suicide attempt. And, like you said, if I would have given up or if those suicide attempts would have worked, I would have never, I would have lost out on so much and I would have never met God.
absolutely. And I think too, like what it would have done to your son as well, like
I know. I think of that all
and
the
and
time.
like just the continued cycle. And so it's almost like you broke that
I
cycle.
did. I hope I did. I really do. I really, really do. I hope I did. I pray to God nowadays, like every day now, multiple times a day. Even in the moment, just for a second, I'll say a quick prayer of how grateful I am of what everything I have around me. I don't care what it is. Thank you. I'm watching my kids play in the yard. I say, thank you, Lord God, for this moment. Thank you so much. Every day, multiple times a day. You have to be grateful for what you have. You can't think about the negatives.
Absolutely.
You have to be grateful for what you have currently.
Wow. That is I told you this was going to be an emotional episode.
Yes, I know.
I
Look,
said
I'm
that to
already
her when
crying. I know.
when I reached out to her. I was like, it's going to be good. Emotional, but good.
Yeah, I knew it would be. I knew it would be.
But I honestly think they're like we are given a story for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think you telling your story when you did, you say it was by accident, but it was for a purpose.
Yes, it
Like when
was.
you told it and where you told it, that was when you were supposed to tell it.
That's
And
what I believe.
because you were ready at that point.
Yes,
And so
absolutely.
and so I think there are not only are there people who are going to hear this and like their lives are going to change, but I think even like people who have already heard your story have probably it has helped so many people because there's people who are silently hurting where they don't want to tell anybody, and then they hear a story like this and they're like they resonate with some part of it, and they your healing from your brokenness helps with their healing from their brokenness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I want to do today is help other people. I mean, that's why I do this outreach work. That's why I get so many messages all the time, and I try to respond to all of them, but I don't have all the answers. I don't know all the answers, but I try my best to give advice. So,
Absolutely. So as we come to a close, one thing we ask at the end of every show, I am a firm believer of like we go through a journey for a reason, and if we come out of it and we don't have anything to take away from it, then what was the point of going through it?
absolutely.
And so I ask everybody at the end if I say if you could leave something, but I'm asking some people to leave. But if you could leave one piece of wisdom with everybody who's watching, what would that be?
My favorite quote is, if it won't matter in 5 years, then don't waste more than 5 minutes on it. It's my favorite quote, and I live
Mm,
by that all the time. Any problem that arises, anytime I get mad, I think about this. I'm like, is this going to matter in 5 years? And if not, then I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to take 5 minutes to worry and then put it aside.
mm,
So that's what I would say. That's a hard one. Giving advice and stuff.
that's
So
awesome. Well, that is the end, and I think we because since Scorpio wasn't on, I think that means we have to have you back on
yeah,
sometime,
I'll come back
just
for sure.
to chat it up, and we've started like a new way of doing it because we were like, man, we can't get a guest for every week, so we've
Right.
started doing topics. So maybe we'll
Oh,
have you
that's
back
good.
sometime
Yeah.
to do some topics, and
Heck
we'd
yeah.
love to maybe collab sometime with what you're doing. I know him and we've been talking a lot about like 10-year plans,
Mhm.
and one of our plan is to start a rehab center called The Corner,
Oh, I
because
love
a lot
that.
of drugs and prostitution and stuff like that happen on
Oh,
the corner of the street, but now healing and redemption and freedom can be found at The Corner.
that's
And so
amazing.
yeah, so that's part of our plan.
I
But
love that.
uh, if you guys have any comments, if you want to say hi to Natalee, just go ahead and drop it in the comments below. Um, Again, if just like she said, she lost her sister to addiction. Um, there's a lot of people who aren't like Natalee and I who unfortunately lose their life to addiction. So if you have anybody you lost to addiction, let us know because we want to put it up at the end of the episode. Natalee, if you text me your sister's name, we'll throw her name up at the end of the
Absolutely. I
show,
sure will.
um, as just a way for us to always remember uh, who they are. And so if you haven't already, if you're listening and you haven't subscribed, I don't know why, go ahead and subscribe, like it, hit the bell so you can be notified whenever we drop a new episode. And this is a special episode because it's airing on Veterans Day. So I want to say happy Veterans Day to all you fellow veterans. This country wouldn't be safe if it wasn't for people like us. So um, thank you. And if you need help, go get help, please. Don't be afraid to share what you're going through because it just might save your life. So
Absolutely.
we thank you guys, and we are so glad that you listen. Natalee, thank you again for doing this. Thank you for being transparent and open so that someone can resonate with what you said. But
Thank you.
that is all we have for today. So thank you guys. Peace.